We got a couple big hitters in the game out here. They're going to be dropping bombs. You know, they'll get a little feisty, drop some jokes, have a good time, give some tips, maybe inspire a few people. You know what I'm saying? We got the Chaos Captain over here. We got JB in the house. And we got Corey Combs over here with SouthShore Roofing and Exteriors. And now Jerry's Roofing, right? We're talking buying businesses. We're talking selling businesses, all that good stuff. JB, I mean, you got the author right here. Don't guess. Thrive Through Storms. How many leaders out there need a copy of this? Go get your hands on this. For show.
Great book.
Dude, I mean, he's been there, done it, right? We're all looking for these answers. So go get them. Check it out. Make sure you get a copy. You know, we're talking about selling businesses, buying business. There's PE, all that stuff. We got the Chaos Captain selling his. We got Corey buying Jerry's Roofing, right? I want to kind of dive into this. We can start with, you know, the purchasing. Like, where's your mindset, I guess? Like, how does that go in with your vision, you know, and what does that really look like maybe for somebody who is interested in actually purchasing, right? And maybe adding or expanding.
That's a really good way to lead into this. It was interesting because I actually 3 years ago, I hired a fractional CFO. And if you're a roofing company owner and you're doing over 5 million and you don't have a CFO or a fractional CFO, I highly recommend that you do that because it will illuminate some things. Like, look, I have a 9th grade education, right? I mean, I'm not a master's in finance. The CFO will look at things from a much different perspective. And I told him what my goals were, what I wanted to make per year, what I wanted the profit to be, and all of that stuff. And we came up with a few scenarios, and the easiest path to that was buying another business. I had a proof of concept of growth. We had some really good processes, and the company, SouthShore, was very stable, really good cash flow. And so it made it, when he first brought it up, my first response was, hell no. I was like, I don't want to do that. But my wife, God bless her, she's like, it's kind of like kids, right? Once you have one, you might as well have 3 or 4, you know? I was like,
you're crazy, man.
Yeah, I was like, I can't argue with that logic. So
I love it.
Yeah, so that was how the idea to purchase it, and it came about. It was the right move, and it worked out, man.
And so then, like, at a branding standpoint, is it, hey, you kind of leverage that brand, or is it something where you kind of try to absorb it one day, or what's that look like?
Well, I look at the playbook of PE, and this didn't really factor into the decision, but look at the playbook of PE. They don't rebrand, right? They roll up brands, and they keep those brands intact because that's where the value was, that brand. Mm-hmm. That's why they purchased it. So, you know, I looked at it in a couple different lenses. You know, what was the lifetime customer look like? You know, with that company, what is their reputation? What is their digital reputation? Do they have some equity there that I can buy? So I looked at all of those things, and I mean, look, they opened up a Google My Business in like 2005 or whatever. Yeah. So it made sense.
Established.
Yeah, they were established. So the funny thing is we're getting customers calling in now that had their roof done 25 years ago, and they're using Jerry's again. So so we looked at that, and that's what we did. We kept the brand intact, and
that's part of what you bought, basically a big piece of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like it.
I mean, their EBITDA was good, you know, and which I love that, you know, 3 to 5 years ago, nobody in the industry was talking about EBITDA. Nobody was talking about SDE. Nobody was talking about any of those things. And so now it's a topic. Yeah. Yeah. So we're evolving, we're growing.
Yeah, I love it. You guys are kind of helping lead the way over here. So well done. What about you, Chaos Captain? What about on the other side? And when you're looking at you want to sell, you want to do your next chaos, I guess, right? Your next adventure over here. So when you're starting it, what should people be thinking about when their goal is to maybe exit one day?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. So I think on the exit side is it's got to be something that's already scalable and it's got to have a lot of processes in place. So the main thing that we actually had focused on, because the goal was never to sell MHI, like we actually wanted to sell Ugly Roof, which is our rejuvenation company. So, but we were setting up an organization where we didn't have to be in the business, right? So it was built to withstand us not working every day in that business at least. And so I would say that that's the number one thing to really think about is like how to build the business to where you're not the operator. Like you got to operate to a certain point, but how do you get the right people in place? How do you build the right culture?
Real quick, though, I want to touch on that because you hear that a lot, but then it's like I think some people think they can be completely hands off. Can you get to the point where you're completely hands off if you're not an operator, or is it still you're kind of tuned in or kind of like plugged in a way?
I don't think you can ever just be totally out. No, like I think that working 5 hours a year is not really possible, right? I think
right. But you see people trying that though, right? And it goes haywire sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, if I throw it in there, I would say that at the end of things, prior to acquisition, like I was probably working 10 hours a week on the business, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And somewhat in the business, but it's a never ending labor of love if you have the right team and you build a right leadership structure. So that's what we looked at is like, I wasn't really focused on the end customer anymore, but like, because every time you step back a layer, right? There was 2 layers, 3 layers, between myself and the customer. So my customer became my top leadership team, right? The director of sales, the director of ops, the accounting, like the accounting, like all like that 5 people set in departments. That was my new customer. And so, and so that became my customer. And so that gave the servant leadership. And when I can serve them, then they serve their leaders, and then they serve the field reps, and then they serve the customer. And that's kind of how that we looked at it. So I would say anybody is looking to, let's say build, scale, sell, or build, scale, hold. I think the models are the same. You just got to have the right work structure in place to where that you can really genuinely show what your servant leadership looks like. And yeah, that's what we did. I mean, we were hands off to the point of daily operations of like, hey, let's move the dump trailer over here or order the materials from ABC. Like we were pretty much hands off on those things, but we were ultimately hands on in the big decisions of like, hey,
putting out fires.
Should we putting out fires? Yeah. I mean, you
biggest
become,
problem.
Yeah. It's playing whack-a-mole, you know what I mean?
That's a good way to say it, right? Whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole all day long.
Well, I think this is something too that we can kind of lean into is just the leadership conversation, right? I think some people, they get to a certain point, and it's hard to remember that as your business grows, you're taking on more responsibility, more people. All of a sudden, your responsibilities are way different and developed. So you're always having to level up. And sometimes I think leaders get a little bit overwhelmed, right? So it's like, how can somebody who's running a business make sure that they're stepping into that full power leadership for their company? And because I think if you do, like you said, it changes everything, right? Because now you're building leaders, and now those leaders are crushing it, and they're so reliable, right? It's just there's something to that.
Can I share something on that? Because I'm actually dealing with this right now. One of the issues. So John, I think, articulated it perfectly, right? You're playing whack-a-mole, and the only thing constant in this business construction is things just change, and things change rapidly. And I had a sales manager for a couple of years who was fantastic. He was great. He was trained exactly the way that I wanted him. He trained my sales team. He did a good job at managing them. Our numbers stayed where they needed to be. It was great. He left. I love the Richard Branson quote on like train people so well that they can leave, but treat them so well that they'll stay. Well, he decided, and I train, John can attest to this. Like we train a lot. Like it's always about growth, understand transparency, all those things. And I trained him so well. He was like, look, man, I got to go out on my own. Right. And I take that as a badge of honor. I thought it was great. So I stepped into the sales manager role, mainly out of convenience. Right now, because I've been in charge of the sales team for the last 6 months, there are some hard decisions I probably should have made a month ago.
Oh yeah.
That I am kicking the can down the road because I'm so invested and I'm so involved with these guys that I can't look at it objectively.
100%.
And so the best example or analogy I can give you is like, one, I'm standing there with these blinders on because I'm immersed in this one particular part of my business where I'm not looking at that 10,000 foot view objectively, where I'm able to just govern by the numbers and the metrics. And now there's feeling in there, and I don't want to make some of these hard decisions that I have to make that I absolutely know I have to. And so that leadership side, it's hard to, and I know this is going to sound a little bit callous, but you hire and you maintain roles, not people. And it's when you're day to day, it's hard to abide by that and not get emotional. Right. So I think that there's only so much coaching you can do. There's only so much that you can do when you don't have that separation to where you can say, hey, listen, this is my decision. It's void of emotion. And now I'm in the situation that I'm in. So
that's tough. I struggle with that too. I mean, and then it just ends up burning both parties. You know what I mean? Or whoever. And it's funny too. So when you're a leader and you're put in that position where you're not having to do something where you're having to be a sales manager, right? You feel like you're making all the right decisions. You're kind of floating around. You feel kind of invincible. And also you bog yourself down on that like one big initiative that taken on. And it's like, well, how can I also do all that stuff too? Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
we're interested to hear John's take on that, man.
Yeah.
I wrote down a couple of things there as you were talking, Corey, because we've had a lot of in-depth conversations behind the scenes about things. But I mean, we always have the lens of is people over profit. However, when you look at that lens, it also has to have enough profit to hire the right people.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have enough profit, like I can't hire good quality people who are then going to take care of those next levels. So it's a delicate balance. It's a delicate dance, right? It's like, do you prioritize people or profit? And when asked that, it's like, well, if I prioritize the right profit metrics, I can hire the right people who will then take care of the profit metrics. Yeah. So it's one and the same in my mind. And the only way that we've been able to balance that is, which we have this system, I don't know if we talked about this last time, but we call it AEP, but where it's attitude, effort, and performance. And we have a anonymous, blind, if you will, peer-to-peer analysis of everybody on the team, and they get to grade everybody. And so now we took the subjectivity that you guys were talking about of like is this person a good person that we want on the team? Because from a sales manager vantage point, I've got a sales rep, he's doing $3 million a year. He's treating me like gold and I'm giving him leads. But is he treating the back office staff the same way that he's treating me because I'm feeding him leads? And if he's not, then I would like to know that.
So if you're talking about like pay and stuff, are you bringing those peer-to-peer reviews into those kind of conversations? Yeah, I like that. Yeah, we would do it at least twice a year, and depends on the health or if there's change management programs going on at the time. It might even be quarterly. But if there's not major change management issues happening, or you're switching systems or a new sales process or production process, well, I'm gonna check every 90 days. But yeah, it's we literally grade on attitude, effort, and performance. So can people learn this in day 41 too, by the way?
Yeah. This is one of the things that we actually teach and train. I've got a whole, I'm actually making software now with it, but I've got a Google form now that we use. Dude.
Website's looking great. Man. Day41thrive.com.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. But it's, and from a leadership aspect, and like if I'm really looking at servant leadership and doing the right thing at all times and making these hard decisions that Corey's talking about, a number one metric I have to be able to measure is attitude. Right? What is this person's attitude like? Because if they got a bad attitude, but they're selling $3 million a year, are they really an asset, or are they holding two other people back that could be selling $5 million a year each, right? So if we're looking just in the sales context, so as a leader, I have to take it on myself to make these hard decisions, to have these hard conversations quickly, like, right, hire slow, fire fast. But it's really about, if they don't have the right attitude and their attitude scores are low, like that's the first thing that we attack in a good way. Hey, it's like, this is what all the peers are saying. This is what we're seeing. We would love to hear your perspective on it. Like, what can we do to help you grow in this area? It's not like an immediately out the door, but because maybe they had a bad quarter, maybe they're going through a divorce, maybe they lost custody of their kids. Like, there's all these things that happen that are subjective to bring in, but at least we have an objective number to measure from, to where that we can bring it up and start having this conversation.
Anything you can have numbers on, metrics, data, whatever, it makes the conversation a lot easier, because all you're doing is just reviewing the numbers rather than attacking them based off of.
It's emotional.
It's all emotional. Otherwise, you have nothing that, you're just basically attacking them, or that's how they feel, and that doesn't go anywhere.
Yep.
Have you ever had it, because I know you guys, like you say, servant leaders. Have you ever where you feel like sometimes you overgave and kind of set the tone, whether it's leads, money, whatever it is? Because I've ran into that where it's like you feel like you gave too much, and also not just kind of expected.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the thing that we've always tried to do, and then I'll toss it to Corey, is expectation versus agreement. Right. So there has to be clarity in what we agree on. Right. Expectations can change, but what we agree that you're going to do, or that I'm going to do, is when we shake hands and we talk about it and we look eye to eye. And so in those conversations, it's like, how do we make sure that we're aligned on what we agree that we're going to do? We might not agree on why that we're doing it, but we're going to have that commonality that we're going to do it because it's the right thing with the company or with the customer. So
100%.
I think that's the first thing when it comes to setting expectations is, here's the expectation. Do we agree? If we don't agree, let's understand why. And then we have to come to an agreement, and then that way it's set. So.
It's crazy because it's so complicated, but it's like so fundamental, right? It's just human, you know what I mean? Just like relationships, expectations, right? Like it really is, but it makes such a crazy impact. What about you, Corey? You got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a challenging, it's a challenging situation because, you hire these really conscientious, responsible, top performers. Like my sales manager he was great. He would follow the process. Like he took it hard when he had a bad month, and he was self-aware and all of those things. And, he eventually, because of the type of person he is, he went out and he's out running his own business now, and he's going to do well because he's that kind of person. And then you get, your other high performers, which, I have on my team, but they're not quite as self-aware. They're not quite as self-reflective. And it's a challenge because when when I hire a sales rep, the first thing that we do once we start getting them onboarded and trained, before they start running leads, we come up with a set of goals of what they want to achieve for, 96 months and 1 year. So we set, these benchmarks of what we want them to accomplish. And the overall goal is, okay, well, what do you want to do in terms of revenue this year? Okay. What's your gross revenue goal? And that's what most people do. They leave it there. Hey, I want to sell $1 million. Okay, great. But what we actually do is we break that down into, monthly. What do you have to do monthly? How many leads do you have to run? What does your close rate have to be? What are these reasonable expectations? So we actually work backwards, and we give them kind of fundamental bench. Right. We give them the formula of like, hey, this is what you've got to hit. And so when we have our sales meetings every month, I'm sorry, not sales meetings, but I meet with everybody individually on the sales team. At the beginning of the month, we go through their commissions, we go through their, percentage to goal and all of that stuff. And you can still hold them accountable by the numbers. And you could say, hey, listen, by this time you should be here. Here's your deficit, Now we've got to figure out how to get you there.
A game plan helped them get there, right? I mean, and that's huge. Aren't so you're actually doing a sales training too, aren't you? Do you want to tell a little bit about that and where it's at and whatnot?
Yeah, and we cover this, and so John and I I actually asked him the other day to send me, like what his idea of a performance improvement plan would look like, right? Because I want to test and make sure that what I'm doing is actually, follows kind of the logic of what the expectation is for my sales team. And so I'll give you a good example. One guy in particular, he's not doing great. And, his complaint is, well, these leads, like, every salesman's got to say, like, I get bad leads and all this stuff. I said, okay, cool. So here's what we're going to do. We're actually, which he's doing okay. But I'm like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to work on your referral side of everything. So if the leads that I provide you aren't giving you the juice you need to hit your goals, then we have two choices. You either go somewhere else, or we figure out a way to get you referrals so that you have leads you can actually do well with. And so we came up with an action plan for him. So we came up with 3 categories he was going to hit. We came up with how many activities he's going to do that week and what his expected conversion rate is on that. And I said, I'll check in with you every week, and we'll see where you are with everything. And by the end of the month, we're going to check that against what you signed off on, and we're going to see where you're at with it. And that's part of the attitude, effort, and performance, right? If you're not going to take the responsibility and the initiative to do this, then we're going to have to part ways, because at that point it's no longer.
But you gave him a chance to succeed, though, right? Because basically something like that is struggling to close. So maybe they're not following up enough. Their pitch isn't the greatest. But if you can get them referral leads, it's going to be easier close, right? They're just easier, just knock them down. So now all of a sudden you're giving them a game plan where it's like, instead of just letting them go, which most people would, you're at least giving them, hey,
we're taking away the excuses.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, 100%. And if they want to take it, it's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to add something on there with Corey. But first, I wrote that blog about there's no such thing as a bad lead. So just send him that, Corey. Like, it'll let him read that out. I think it's funny. But
is this one? Is that one on the Day 41 Thrive?
No, it's on johnbroce.com. Just go to the blog section.
I'll put that in the notes too.
Which I agree with you, John. There are no
there are no bad leads in life. But but on the actual side with I wrote down a couple things too, because I was thinking through that as you were talking. What I think happens as business owners when we're in the hiring seat, right, or even in the management seat, like we try to connect ourselves with the person that's there. So one, like the first step is I can't expect 10x out of every employee, right? I just want to get 1x out of most people, right? Because like I got to get their motivation to 1x. I need you to do 1-to-1 what it is that I'm asking you in the expectations, right? But I think the issue that we have is we see these qualities that we attach back to ourselves. And then it's hard to let somebody go because we feel like that we're letting ourselves down, right? It's like I saw something in Corey, and so I hired Corey, and I know that he can do this, and like I see the potential that he has. He's not ready to bust through that ceiling yet, but I hang on to him because I want to see him bust in that ceiling, or it's a Kool-Aid man just coming through the wall. Like he's going to be that eventually. I can see it. And so we get this optimistic view as entrepreneurs, which is a great thing to have. It's not a bad quality, but I think that we wind up seeing our own qualities in somebody, and we feel that we're letting ourselves down because I couldn't have made a bad hire. I know that this guy's going to do well. So
and our ego thinks that we're the ones that can pull it out, right? Because we're the best leaders in the world.
That's what it is.
You spot on, brother. Yeah, like. What am I not doing right? Mine's a little bit more pragmatic too. The cost and time to rehire sucks.
Bro,
100%.
Bro, you might have to try this. So my buddy Michael Gogan, right? I don't know if you guys know him. One of the first guys at company. Have you tried it yet, dude? I just had him on the podcast yesterday. I'm like,
No,
dude, this is a pretty good idea.
John's trying to get me to. Yeah.
I
I'm
am
like,
I am ingrained in HireBush.
It's so expensive to try to go hire somebody, and he's not paying me anything to say it. I'm just like, dude, literally, I'm like, oh, dude, if I could just pay that and it actually works, oh, that's easy money.
Yeah.
Well, we have a partnership with them inside of our agency just because of that. So like,
I like
all
it.
of our contractors, when they go through the growth gauge, like part of that assessment is the HireBush thing, and the behavioral traits that it spits out there is pretty cool. Like it kind of helps give the bigger picture about growth, change management. Were they ready to grow and stuff? And so yeah, I love HireBush, one for hiring, but two just for looking within your own way of what your own assessment is, right? It's pretty neat.
Because hiring sucks, and then hiring the wrong person sucks even more.
Oh,
And it's like, oh my god, hiring the wrong person's like, oh, swing and a miss. You never know what you're gonna get. How bad's it gonna be, But so I'm all about it. So what about that on like I want to go a little bit more on the accountability side of when you're hiring. I think sometimes what we fail to do is we don't really have a position molded or refined perfectly. And sometimes they're floating a little bit more than they should. So then it's hard to keep people accountable or be realistic with expectations and stuff like that. What do you guys think there?
Oh, can I? Yeah. I talk a lot about this with contractors all the time because you can't expect something from somebody unless you, the owner, has the I don't even want to say wherewithal, but you have to have at least a cursory understanding of the role, the responsibilities for that role, and where there's overlap in the company and overlap in duties. You have to at least understand that. So when you're a smaller company, and I was really good about this with SouthShore, opening up SouthShore, because I had made so many mistakes prior, and I worked for companies where there wasn't defined roles, and it was a shit show because it was like, your boss is like, why didn't you do this? And you're like, well, I didn't know I was supposed to do this. And they're like, yeah, so I was really good about it. And so what I have learned is just think about the customer journey. That's all you got to do, right? So how do you acquire your customer, and what happens? Then what happens after you acquire your customer? Then what happens? But then after that customer signs the contract, then what happens? And then after that contract, the build happens. How do you want to execute that build? Then when the build is done, how do you make sure your customer's happy?
And who's
then
doing all
after
that?
your customer's happy. Right. So just that's all you got to do is think about those couple categories.
We overcomplicate it so much.
Right. And then
That's crazy.
all right, so you have all these activities that happen during the day of the build. Okay. Well, then you just assign those things to a person. It's that simple, right? When
But
you're
it's not.
smaller,
That's what's so crazy, right?
well, when you're smaller, there's going to be a lot of overlap. So you're going to, we talk about wearing a lot of hats. However, those hats still have to be, delineated. And then once you've delineated those hats, now those responsibilities have to be assigned to somebody, right? And it's really that simple. And if you just assign those key responsibilities to somebody, whether there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people in your organization, because then when you grow, you can say, oh, okay, here we have another hat, right? We have another role, and then we can just offload some of those duties. When it becomes a little complicated is when you really start to grow and you've outgrown some of those processes, so to speak, and then trying to figure out, making sure you don't have duplication, and that you don't the flip side of that is you don't overwhelm somebody, where they don't have too many responsibilities where they can't actually do their job. So
I want to go into that too. You talk about basically outgrowing your processes, right? having to redo everything. It's the funniest thing. It's like I'm only like 2.5 years with this new business with Better Boss, and I just threw away like 1,000 hours of work, right, and rebuilt it, and it was the best feeling in the world, right? But during it sucks, right? But so how do you kind of know sometimes you're outgrowing some stuff and some things need to change, and how do you go about that?
I'll let the chaos capper take this one because I think he's real well suited to answer that.
Oh yeah.
I want to just throw in another layer there too with that. So, and I'll answer the question in a minute, Nick. But I think to get to what you're talking about, right? So I think what Corey was saying is you have to have a defined process and duties. When we do the next step is make sure that those duties are clear and simple, right? So they know how to execute them. But when you're to kind of get to your point and your question too is when you're hiring in the beginning, you're hiring people with multiple duties in one role. So I think that you could be too transparent too, right? You can give too much of the vision, and when you have to switch, just like you said, I got 1,000 hours I had to switch. If people are bought into the old vision because they don't understand the 5-year vision, right? Because it changes, right? Things change. And so now they were bought into the 5-year vision, and now you're trying to undo that. So the thing that we recommend is I don't ever share the 5-year vision with the team. Like we roll it back to where I can change like I'm in a rowboat, right? Because once the battleship is set sail, so we set the vision to where theirs can fit inside of ours. So and it depends on layers, right? So if I've got a C-suite or general manager, whatever, like they understand a 1 year and a 90-day vision.
Yeah.
Then under that, it's 90 days and 30 days. And then the field team is 30 days and 7 days. Like, because like if I hire somebody and let's call them an office manager, but they're answering the phones, they're sending out invoices, they're calling insurance companies, they're doing supplements, they're not really an office manager, right? They're doing 4 different roles.
They're like a secret weapon that you need in this startup
The
phase.
secret weapon. Yeah. But I think you got to be so clear and defined with them. It's like, hey, like, this is a temporary role to do all 4 of these. Right now, we want you on our team because it's the right bus, it's the right team member, but the seat's going to change. So I want your feedback on what you enjoy the most, and then I want to give you the feedback on what I see you excelling at the most. So when it's time to make that change, it's a lot easier because I got in trouble with that at a company prior to MHI where we sold the whole vision to them, and then it's like they're doing multiple roles, and now it's like, hey, I need you to do the accounting piece because you're phenomenal at it. Well, they felt like, well, wait a minute, am I not doing that good enough? So it's one of those things they thought it was that you've got a small
team trying to take over the world just forever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So very intentional.
Yeah.
Running. Yeah.
Be very intentional and like say, I want your feedback. I'm going to give you feedback because you're really doing 4 to 5 roles right now. And I want to know what you enjoy the most, and we're going to bring into the conversation where you're excelling the most, and let's see what comes out of this. It might change in 90 days, right? And so we were always transparent, especially as a young operator.
100%. That's interesting.
I want to piggyback a little bit on that. Talking about clear and defined roles and helping people grow inside the company. What that also does is when let's say for an example, John's example, you hire somebody as an office admin or something like that, but they're doing 4 roles. They're doing some really key things in the company. And then you start to grow a little bit. If you hire sort of the lower level to assist that person, what you're actually doing is you're facilitating growth so that they can actually grow with the company. And the beautiful thing about it is they understand all the lowest level stuff. So they have a better perspective on how to service the company. And so like my production manager, she's an ex-teacher. She's hated it. She started out on the phones, and 3 years later, she's running 2 production departments and didn't know a thing about construction.
Isn't that like the most fun part of what you do right there? Stuff like that.
And when you have really good training mechanisms in place, you have really good roles established, all of those different things, you have the opportunity to bring those people and elevate those people so that they can grow with the company, make more money. And I couldn't operate without her, man. She's unbelievable.
Secret weapons, man. Hey, I think somebody wants to get out. Who's this over here, Corey? Who we got over here? Who's this?
Oh, that's and you got one more.
Are we sharing dogs?
Yeah, might as well. Hold on. Let me see here.
Yeah, so we got Lady Man. She was just chilling.
Hold on, I gotta grab mine. Hold on.
We're sharing dogs. This is the dog moment. This is Teddy. He just got neutered like last week.
Oh no!
So he's kind of not happy, but he's a good boy.
she was just chilling, man. Now it's time to. She wants out. So
Yeah, let's see Nick's dog here. Hey, you gotta
right.
put yours up at the same time, Corey.
Yeah, get it up so I can get a screenshot over here.
you're just see. We call her the fake shit too.
Oh,
She's not really.
Look at this, man.
I love it.
It's my boy. Look,
That's hilarious.
It's the logo.
The white one's
there we go.
Boss. So he's like 5 pounds. And so my wife had him first. And so he's the boss.
That's awesome.
Better Boss is literally named after him. I was trying to think of a name. He was looking at me. I'm like, oh, you know what? Better Boss. And then
That's
this
awesome.
is Lambo after Lambeau Field. He's a little sassy, and he's the nicest one in the family.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's what. Yeah, but Boss looks a little. He looks a little sassy.
Oh man, first time I met him.
him.
No, he loves me the most though. So
Yeah. So yeah, now bunch of thick, big burly men and our little dogs.
our
man.
little dogs. Hey, we'll get a lift in after this, or hit some
That's
golf
right.
balls far.
Yeah.
Smoke a cigar.
Yeah. That's our TRT right there, boys.
Yeah, man.
Maybe I'll have them sponsor the show. It's some TRT. I could get to. There you go.
Need it, man.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, where were we though, folks? Where were we? I don't remember.
We were talking about having designated roles, and when you really carve out those roles and those responsibilities. So I would argue too that if you use the model of, you think about the customer experience and you just think about the logic of the workflow, anybody can sort of build out a roles and responsibilities document. And as long as they have the discipline to continue to add to it, and to stay, because usually when things start getting hectic and chaotic, that's when you've got to take a look at it and figure out where the problems are and the reasoning for the problems, which is usually, either that process broke or it's time to bring somebody else on because you're too busy and you've reached capacity.
We are the problem. We are the problem.
Yeah. We're going to be the bottleneck, right?
We're going to be the bottleneck. We might not want to admit it. It might take a little pain for us to realize it. But at the end of the day, unfortunately, we are the bottleneck. You know what I mean? For the reason why everything's going so good, when it's not going so good, we're also the downfall, right? That's why we sign up for this. I want to add another layer to that, though. So it's like, I don't think I've ever asked this. If I was in tech sales, right? In sales, you go from a BDR, so business development, to account executive. Then you go to enterprise executive. Have you guys ever thought about pitching career growth, even if on the sales side, for people, somebody who is growth minded and kind of set that way for their career?
Yeah, we did that in the sales side. It started out as a field rep, if you will, as a canvasser, and then they would come in and so we kind of had a graduation system, right? You come in and now you could sell shingle roofs, and then you could sell, let's start out canvassing, right? You're knocking doors, you're figuring it out, you're bringing in leads. Now I'll let you sell shingle roof. Then you can do shingles and tile, then shingles, tile, metal, then other trades. So it became this but they had to complete training, kind of like Corey's talking about. It's to be able to grow into a senior roof advisor role or senior sales advisor role, you get they had to graduate each one of these stages, because
I like that
we want them to understand, asphalt sales is pretty simple. I mean, I think you could pump a guy through in about 2 weeks or a person through in about 2 weeks, and they can go sell roofs effectively. But tiles more nuanced, metal's more nuanced, siding's even more nuanced, windows is more nuanced. And so I think it's they started to learn segments of it, and then they were able to sell certain products.
I like that a lot. And the different titles, all that kind of stuff. I like that a lot. And I think, if you're somebody who's trying to level up, get promoted, and have a career like that, I like that. Corey, you got anything to add on that side?
Yeah, I failed miserably on that end.
I feel like it's so hard, and I don't think anybody's doing it right, to be honest with you.
No.
I love that. I love that John had that in place, and I think it's really, really smart to do that. I've sort of taken the perspective of I generally, when we get booked too far out, and my certain reps that can only estimate certain types of projects, when we reach capacity on that, I just take one of my other reps and I train them on, like this morning, we had our sales meeting this morning, and our entire sales meeting was on estimating best practices, just understanding best practices for estimating, kind of a refresher course. And then we had a couple systems that we went over. We went over stucco, over wood and block, and then we went over siding. And the main thing that I always try to hammer home to these to these reps that are learning new systems is you have to think about the unknowns first, right? What are the complications? Like we already know the basic install stuff, but what are the complications? Is it an access issue? Do we have trees? Do we have, can we not get between the houses? So what are the unknowns? What are the complicateds first? And I know we just went off on a little tangent there, but
that's what we do.
Because of I can't control how many leads for certain types of jobs we get. Mostly it's been out of convenience to just elevate somebody because I need them. Mm-hmm. And I wish I was a little bit more methodical about it. But what I do offer my reps is, you start out as a junior rep at 8%. Once you hit your first million, you get up to 10. And then once you hit your 5 million, you get up to 12. And then after you hit your 12%, then you
change the title or no? Like maybe.
Well,
yeah.
So they go from junior, intermediate to senior, and then we have a team lead that gets a little bit of override. They help with some training and things like that. But once you hit senior rep, you become you kind of hit that entrepreneur status where like just hit your numbers and we leave you alone, man. Like. You have a lot of flexibility. You literally get to treat it like it's your business, and that you have the freedom to if Timmy has a soccer game every Tuesday at 2:00 and you want to go, right? You have carte blanche over your calendar. So that's kind of what we offer, is the ability just to really have that quality of life and that freedom.
Run your business.
You operate as an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not as intentional as John's, but it seems to either get people in a position where they own that role and they love it. Like my senior rep right now. I mean, I never talk to him. Like he shows up.
That's the best. I mean, that's what you want, right? I mean, that's really.
He just does his thing,
Yeah, I mean,
he loves it. I love it.
We used to do this thing where every morning we do like 5-10 minutes, motivational video, 3 goals of the day on a Zoom call, end it. End of the day, you get your goals? Yeah, no? What was your highlight? Cool, all right, bye. And like, that was the best. Everybody was just doing their thing,
I think the underlying thing of what you were talking about there is like the guy that leaves you alone, if you will, he's not emotionally
100%.
Expensive.
Oh yeah. Right. Oh my God.
It's not emotionally expensive. It's so like once you jump over to that category, that's what we're trying to do as leaders, is build people that's not emotionally expensive, that they got the EQ to like, I mean, that they're not like.
Just make it happen.
Just make it happen.
Understand, right? We know what to do. We're not a problem.
And that's the attitude thing, right? That's the attitude. That's the effort. And then the performance is there. And so it's like, if their attitude's right, their effort's there, they're not emotionally expensive. Now I want to invest more time and energy into them because as a commodity, right? Like if as a commodity, if I think about my time versus money, it's easier to just pay money to have a problem go away. But to invest time into somebody is more expensive.
100%.
Right. So, and I don't mean to go away, but I'm saying, like, if I want to invest into somebody, investing my time and my mind is the most valuable thing that I can give them. And if they're not emotionally expensive, I'm more open to spending a lot more time with them when it is needed because they grab onto it and go and run. So,
oh yeah, I got a couple of buddies that feel like you'd be good to work with, man. 100%. That's what it's all about. So I want to hear. This is kind of random here, but we're talking about different like hierarchies in sales and kind of my background on the tech side. So we would have, it's boiler room style. We'd have, 40 dudes in a frat house type vibe, a keg. We had the Nerf guns, right? Like the jumbotron goes off every time somebody gets a deal with your song, right? And
You got
you're
the gamify up on the monitor.
Everything, dude. Like,
yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I loved it. It was fun. I had met some good buddies and whatnot. But like, it always makes me wonder. I've seen a couple of people do it, but I feel like that model isn't used enough in roofing. Where it's like I was making 150 calls a day. I'm wondering why people wouldn't do more of that inside sales where you have somebody can make that many calls. You could set it up where, hey, do an instant estimator tool, have them hop on a Zoom. I mean, that's what I was doing. I literally call somebody out of the blue, say, hey, give a second, hop on Zoom, take this link, right? And I feel like you could close a lot of deals that way. And then on the commercial side, it'd be more about, hey, passing it on to somebody who is out in the field. What do you guys think of that?
I think you're right. I think it's more useful on the commercial side, quite frankly. We
Definitely more in the commercial.
let me back up here because so I'm a retail I'm a retail focused company. I've always been retail focused,
Even
but
on the
I'm
rest?
also So, well, just retail, meaning there's no insurance company involved, right? We're dealing directly with whoever's writing the check. All right.
Amazing. Yeah.
But I've also been involved with, some of the insurance stuff and all of that. When you have a precipitating event where that there is damage and there's a natural lead in to the solution, you're going to have a much greater success rate than you are if you're just like, there's no storms, there's nothing going on, and you're just calling somebody and saying, hey, let me give you a quote on your roof. They're going to say, no, thank you. Because people don't want to pay for a roof. They don't want to buy a roof. Nobody wants to replace their roof. Okay.
What if you're selling an annual inspection and a blah 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 for $3.99? You clean the gutters, and I know your wife's been yelling at you to clean those gutters. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden now you got a lead still, right?
Yeah. That I think is great. Like if you're like, hey, listen, we're going to do gutter cleaning, we're going to do a maintenance inspection, etc. Yes, great lead in, right?
Yeah.
On the commercial side, the ability to get in front of the property manager, and we've really been working hard on that this year, and sort of the lead in and the approach and what that looks like. They get cold called all the time, right? The building facilities managers, they get cold called all the time. Like everybody wants to deal with them. What people don't do is people don't go and see them at their office and bring them donuts. What people don't do is say, hey man, like what is the thing that you're dealing with that just you don't want to deal with as a facility manager? And let me see if I can take that off your plate, right? When you open those conversations up, so if you cold call them and you can get to that manager and you can have that conversation with them, absolutely, right? I'm bringing some value to you for a need. I think you could be very successful in that regard. But our approach has been so drastically different that, unless there's a storm, people haven't been super successful.
But dude, so this ChatGPT stuff, man, like they have this deep research mode now where it works for you. It's like an AI agent, right? For 30 minutes, it can come up with 60 pages and I'll give it prospects, my hit list, and some of the info in just talking points and specifics and stuff that I learn. I'm like, man, I can connect with this person for sure, right? Like, and that's half the battle, right? Is just finding the connection. And once you feel like you have a connection, now you're just talking business, no guard.
Well, where you came from, peak, right? I mean, that's really what you did.
100%. It was all started with maintenance, right?
Yeah.
Maintenance and service. Not pushing anything big, right? Others, they're thinking big dollars. They're thinking, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Hey, let me just come check this out for you, man. Like, what do you got to lose?
I want to protect
right?
your asset.
Yeah.
That's what I do for a living.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, John?
Well, I still have Nick's T-shirt, or my wife does, that I like big Roosh.
You got that, dude? That's OG, dude.
Yeah, my wife still wears it. Yeah.
Don't lose that. That's OG.
Yeah, it's OG, man. It's going to go in the shadow box all of the water soon. But
I made the
I was
Hall of
going to
Fame.
get you to sign it first.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah,
need you to
done
sign it
deal.
first.
Done deal.
But no, I love the maintenance idea, but I think if there's a different process, a different methodology when you're thinking on B2B versus B2C, and even B2C with IHP, right? An in-home
100%.
process. And so I love the inside sales thing. I do think that e-com is coming. And I think that we got to be prepped for it and ready. And I'll say this, Corey, I'll go ahead and call us out on it. So when you start talking about the tech side, Corey and I have partnered up on another business too, called Sure Home Pros. That's what we're doing, is we're leaning into the e-com side, and it's home exterior cleaning and those types of services. But I think that is coming so hard and fast and quick that it's going to take a lot of people blindsided, and they're not going to know what happened inside of their business. So I do think that in-home sales is the thing, right? Currently, I think in 3 years it becomes 30 to 40% of the sales. 100%. I think that we got to shift quickly and understand that AI can do a lot of things shorter, faster, and quicker. And to your point with the Zoom, so like during COVID, we did very well with that. But we, because it was a necessity, right? But people got Zoom fatigue. Homeowners got Zoom fatigue. We do this all day long, but because we built our companies that everything is remote, right? So I'm kind of used to it. But when it comes to the inside sales side, we did it in the rehash process, and we still do it in the rehash process. So, like if we don't close the deal, my inside rep is now a rehash rep. He's reaching out. He's going to jump on a Zoom call and try to bring that in there. And then one thing that you said too with the gamify thing, sales culture is important. And so we didn't have a gamified board because we kind of did for the meeting once a week, but it wasn't really that. But we had a chat group, and it was chatter. When there wasn't chattering and razzing on each other,
talking trash,
I had a sales culture issue. Something was wrong. Like that's how we would measure it quickly. The guys aren't chattering on each other.
Because it does motivate you, right? There's this weird thing about just feeling mess, because you mess with your best friends. Like I'm gonna be meaner to my best friend than I am to some stranger. You know what I mean? Like
absolutely.
Now you're connected.
Yeah, you're gonna bust balls.
Yeah, 100%. But I do think
I think that people have to realize that tech is getting ready to enter with the space in a hard, fast way, and they better embrace it now, and don't get left behind. And yes, can AI install the actual roof? No, but AI can replace everybody in the office and every salesperson that you have. And I
don't necessarily think, like you're saying, like they don't necessarily have to be calling, right? Inside sales, maybe their whole thing is hunting, right? Some way of hunting, and in whatever form people feel like they're good at. So there's a ton of variations, but I do think, like you're saying, it's going to be like Carvana for shopping for a roof. I mean, that's what I would like to go.
Which has not worked out well.
But I just bought my
Which-
car though, dude. I'm like, I don't want to go there. I don't want to deal with it, bro. I found the first site that was able to literally pick my colors, do this, and I was done. And I was like, yeah, that's what I'll go with.
Okay, so do a deep dive on Carvana today, all right, and see the issues that they're having. Look at their profitability. It's tough. They're having a really hard time. And what my big concern here is Nick, you've been in the industry for a while. John's been in the industry for a while. I've been in the industry for a long time as well. There's a big difference between a company that can deliver value and a big difference between a company that cannot deliver value. And my big concern is we're going to level the playing field here, so to speak, in the minds of the consumer by these automated estimating options. And we're going to lose the service aspect of it as an ability to help the homeowner understand why we might be a little bit more money. Because on the estimating and sales side, yes, AI can take the place of the salesperson. But what happens during the project, how things are documented, the care we take to the property, the quality of the installers, the training that they have, the proper insurances, all of these different things have to come into the mix. So we've got to figure out how to marry the two. And that's what John and I are working on with a couple of other guys in the industry right now, is we're trying to test these models to see if we can marry these two things with the upfront convenience of not having to deal with anybody, like you just said. So that to me is the tricky part.
I just remember I was getting like emotional about one idea my buddy was talking about, where he was figuring a way to eliminate the human interaction and eliminate them getting off their butt, all this I'm like, what? I don't like that idea. And he's like, but this is what people really care about, right? If you think about Amazon's the one that figured it out. I have no relationship to Amazon, right? But they hit me right every single time, right? So for my customer experience, I guess all I care about is it's boom, done, no issues.
Well, there's no friction.
There's no friction.
That's what you. That's what you like about Amazon, is there's no friction, right? So think about it as a full process, right? Amazon's easy. There's no friction looking something up. There's no friction ordering it. There's no friction getting it delivered. There's none. Okay. If there is, let's say your package shows up on your doorstep and it's just mangled and everything's broken inside, right? Now there's some friction. And if that was your experience every time you ordered something from Amazon, you're not going to order from Amazon anymore, even though it's really easy to order. The end user experience when you get your product sucks. And that's what I'm trying to focus on. And that's what I'm trying to think about, is how do we make it seamless all the way across the board without sort of leveling the playing field in the customer's eyes, that why would I pay more now? Everybody's the same because I have the convenience of ordering it, when we know I've been on a lot of roofs in my life, and I've seen a lot of what happens when you don't take that care. Mm-hmm. So, construction across the board, period. But roofing's probably the easiest one. So that's my big concern.
I think your underlying point, though, is that why do you go to Amazon? It's because of the customer experience that you have in the end, right? So even if we level the playing field, because you can do Amazon or Temu, right? If I find a product that I want, I don't actually go to that product's website. Most of the time, I go to Amazon just to see if it's there first. Yeah. I don't care if it's more money, just because I like that experience and I understand what that experience is.
Frictionless.
So I think what you're saying is that it's really, the underlying tone is that it's a customer experience in the end, in the delivery of the product, right? So even with the roof side, I don't think that we can replace that experience with AI or with technology, because you literally got to have the interaction of somebody that's going to be able to put their eyes on it to say, hey, I need to put hurricane clips on if we're here in Florida, or hey, I need to put ice and water shield on here. Hey, I need to redo these hidden gutters. Like,
it's a different process. Rotted, whatever.
Your software,
right?
Yeah. So all those things can't be replaced with an aerial measurement and
eventually
in a sale.
Dude, they're coming out with everything, dude. They're coming out with everything.
Eventually.
It's going to be the weirdest time of our lives. I'm telling you. It's going to go so crazy through the roof. Everything's going to change. AI.
So how do you, so how do you get, I guess the question is how do you get transparent comparison tools, right? Like, how do you get really super transparent so that the homeowners that lack all the context really to be able to make a good decision, because they don't understand the difference of training and, what happens when you have bad installers and cheap installers and, all of those things. They don't have that context. They don't understand what happens when you jump on a roof and you pull up that first course of shingles all the way around the roof. And it's, wind-driven rain's been getting in there for years. And now you got to replace all their subfascia, 2 feet up of plywood, and all their soffit and fascia's got to get replaced. Now, they don't have that context. So how do we become super transparent so that we can not only make it frictionless, but we can also educate the homeowner when the homeowner doesn't want to take the time because they're looking at a quick, convenient solution.
Think about a year. If I think about a year of just doing that, I think I could tell you. But you know what I mean? Like that to build all that out.
I think the answer is in the question, right? It's how do you do it now, right? And so, like, we just ordered all of our kitchen cabinets to come and get painted, right? So it was literally a frictionless process, which Corey and I think we chatted about it, but like we ordered it was $5,800. I didn't even like. All I had was a sales funnel, right? Like I understand what a funnel is, but I went through it and I watched with these videos of how they're going to do it and why that he's going to be at this price and why that he's more. It's just a digital way of actually getting the same education to the customer.
Different shopping.
But I went ahead and
everyone's going to have a different one.
Yeah, but I purchased it at 11 o'clock at night to $5,800 to come redo all my cabinets.
See, that's
right? And then I wanted to understand that experience that Corey was just talking about, right? And so I went ahead and called some painters and some people and some cabinet refinishers to come out and look. It was abysmal. Like they didn't show up. They didn't answer the phone. The guys that finally did show up with $3,500. But do I really trust them? Because like it wasn't an instant, like, like it didn't feel good. Right. So the price didn't matter at that point. It was like, hey, it was quick. It was instant. I sent over the pictures. I had a video in my kitchen. They said, we'll be in touch tomorrow. Right. So they literally were behind a desk. They probably manually, processed it and looked at it, came back with the price, but they set the expectation up front. Like this is what it's going to be.
Are they still doing good business?
I prefer that.
Are they still, you know what I mean? So it's like this, it's this weird thing. Like I just hired like the most expensive lawyer and accountant and they both sucked. They were both terrible, but they had a trillion 5-star reviews. They have amazing process on getting reviews. I'm telling you, like the amount of times they hit me up afterward. So like, but they were really freaking good at that. So it's like.
You make a great point there, Nick. I mean, it's this challenge. John, you're a different buyer, right? You're a much more educated buyer. Nick, you're a much more educated buyer. You look at things from a much different standpoint than the average Joe homeowner. I think what's going to happen, and John and I have talked about this, and it's actually happening with us, is, we're getting on our lead disposition sheets now. How'd you hear about us? Chat GPT, right? So
shout out to your boy, right?
Yeah. So, Stearns has got us, our SEO cooking so good that, we're showing up crazy, but,
hit the guys up,
where we're going to get it. Yeah. I think where we're going to get in a few years is, Joe homeowner's going to say, hey, I've got a roof leak, Chat GPT or whatever the next iteration of that is. Get me 3 quotes from the top roofing companies and send them to my email, right? That's what's going to happen.
Exactly.
It's crazy. But hey, just be very open-minded to change, I would say. So if you're out there, you're listening to this, maybe you're a little bit slower on change. I'm not saying you have to change everything overnight, but just maybe be a little bit more open and just in tune with what's going on.
It's one of the things. Don't be Blockbuster, right? And what they did with Netflix, like,
right?
That's the difference here.
Great lesson. Yeah,
it's Blockbuster and Netflix. It's like, this internet thing is not going to be cool, right? And they had an opportunity to buy Netflix, and so I looked at this too, like for pennies on what the value is now, like pennies, and they're like, no, we're going to be fine, right? And it's like, well, are you kidding me? Like, look at Blockbuster now because they didn't want to change, and so I think that we have that a lot as a credo inside of the roofing industry. It's like, it's never going to change. It's always going to be storms. I'm always going to chase it with the insurance company and, all these things. Don't get me wrong. There's always going to be storms. There's going to be roofs to do. But I think the way that we interface with the customer, with the insurance companies, with everything is changing drastically, especially with legislation. So I would say is like, don't be egotistical to say it's never going to change. It's changing right now. Like it just changed again. Like it's changing right now. And
stay humble.
I think that we're far out from having a way to put on the roof and flash the roof. So if anything, if you're not comfortable in the business side, get back into the craftsman side. Master the craft, right? Master the craftsmanship because,
with labor issues
like, and with labor issues like we're having right now, like we're going to need more and more craftsmen. So I would say learn to master the craft because I think that a lot of people are not going to be in business as a business owner, but they could be a really good sub. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but I think a lot of guys are trying to run a business and use all these subcontractors that they don't even know how to put the roof on them with themselves. And it's a very difficult place. The landscape is changing. It's changing rapidly. So
it's a good space to be in, though, especially if you're in the trades, right? If you got any kind of skill like that. You know, I was going to college, everyone's like, go to college, go to college, go to college. I came from blue collar. They were all in the trades. I went to college. I don't know if it benefited me that much, right? To be 100% honest with you, then all of a sudden, all these guys in the trades are making all this money, right? So it's a good spot to be in.
We have some. I was just going through. John called earlier, and I was on a meeting with my CFO. You know, we were kind of looking at what we're paying out to everybody. I mean, look, I've got installers that have only been in this country for a few years, don't speak English very well, and they're making like mid six figures.
Nice.
I mean,
crazy.
that doesn't suck, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Opportunity. All right,
Opportunity, man.
What do you guys want to end it on here? I'll let you guys both kind of have a little close out, whatever you want to close it out. And then Corey, make sure you talk about that event you got going or the sales training.
Yeah, I'll go after John. I'll let John go for a second, man.
Why me?
What? I don't know what it works here, man. Somebody throw you under the bus.
Oh man, I like. So I guess this is the Jerry Springer moment, right? It's the final thought.
Yeah.
So I would say to kind of wrap up the conversation that we've had here is like, if you're out there listening right now, it's the space is changing, right? I think we said that, but at the same time, a lot of things are still very, very much the same. And one thing is like how do you treat people and how you treat everybody around you. So if you think about the customer and the customer experience and everything we've been talking about, one thing that I always hold to is that, 3 days after I meet with a customer, so let's say it's electronically, AI, whatever, it doesn't really matter at this point. What do they remember about you and your brand, right? And typically they remember the price and how you made them feel. And that's it. So learn to just be a good person and learn how to treat people the right way and how that you want to be treated. And I think that's the main customer experience because that's what they're going to remember is that you treated them well, right? And that's
the charm, the energy,
the main sentiment.
The charisma, how you made it feel.
All that. Yeah, all that. That's what people actually can hang on to. So, and that's just from like being in home sales, right? Like you call somebody back in 5 days, it's like, what's your name? What company you with again? I'm like, I thought I closed this thing there, right?
Yeah, right.
They're like, oh no, you're the guy that remembered my daughter's name in her bedroom. It was leaking, like, or oh, you petted my dog, right? So it's having these little micro things that actually matter. And so that's what I would say is like, it doesn't matter if you're in the AI road or you're still all on paper. It's all about how do you make the customer feel at the end of the day. And I think that goes back to everything Corey was saying earlier.
It's a mix of everything, right? Like literally after this, I got 10 leads that I could have followed up with some automation. I'm going to record a minute video. And one by one, I'm going to send a personalized video, right? So you still have to have the touch. Sometimes you turn off the automations for show too.
So I will yield to the gentleman that is now in New York. It used to be in Florida.
From New York.
Yeah. I think it's a really great thing to think about. And I guess this is why I'm really want to hang on to the in-home sales because that was my passion. That's my passion. Like I love going in, talking to people, solving their problems, leaving them with that lasting impression, being professional, all of that stuff. And so I think to close out, I'd like to piggyback on that. I hope we don't lose our way with the convenience of technology because, human connection is a really important part of what we do and how we find meaning and joy in our work. Especially like if we run a good company and we get a lot of reviews and people are happy and we have great customers and all of that stuff, it brings some meaning to life. So I hope we don't lose that. And I would say that while we're working on solving this problem, because it is going to change, is we remember how people truly evaluate buying from us and how people truly evaluate making buying decisions. And, I do a lot of training, sales training with salespeople, roofing company owners, all of this stuff. And the number one thing they think people use to evaluate buying from us is price, but it's not actually. Only 20 to 25% of people actually evaluate buying from you by price alone, which is a small percentage. So now you got crazy. 80% of the people out there that actually use some different other criteria. And there's a lot of research behind this, right? It's not like this magic thing that I'm thinking of. There's Rilla, there's a lot, Rilla has a lot of really good stuff out there. There's some social scientists that have done some really good work on this. And if you want to learn about it, we'll see. And human connection is a big part of that. Likability is a big part of that. So the first and foremost is if they're going to buy from you, right? We talk about trust and likability. It's huge. So I hope we can figure it out with the likability side. And I think I don't want to lose our humanity part of it. And then, they got to make comparisons that they can understand. They've got to see the difference between you and your competitor. And they have to know what the experience is going to be like using your company. That's really what homeowners are using as their evaluation criteria. And this is a lot of what we teach when we do these trainings is like understanding these things so you can be better positioned, your company can be better positioned to actually make these sales. So whether we're doing it virtually or whatever, I think those principles still have to ring true.
Cool, but it's gonna be coming out. Are you doing a webinar type style, or?
Well, we're doing a live training July 24th and 25th down in Fort Lauderdale, but we're also doing it on a webinar. You can join our Facebook group, and I'll send you the link.
You got a bunch of people in there too.
Yeah, I'll do. We got like 6,000 people in that group. And it's just really about helping people learn some of these principles and concepts without getting marketed to and pitched and all this other nonsense.
What's the group called again?
It is called Roofing Industry Coaching.
I do want to add one last thing in there, Corey, is that it's been an honor to be on this podcast with you and Nick, with Corey being the top executive in the roofing space, and then Nick, man, like Corey's laughing. I don't know why, but Nick, it's been fun just getting to know you the last few years, and man, it's always a good time to be here, man.
Always, man.
Yeah,
absolute pleasure.
I love your questions. I love your questions.
I love your energy. I love your questions. Yeah,
bro,
I love it.
It's funny when you're talking about like the sales side. I kind of think about that. With my last company, I had so much energy. I feel like that sometimes people would just buy from me, just because they wanted that energy in their life, where they just give me a call, literally, and that was why. And so with this company, I think about if I do like a late night working on a project, I don't have the energy, and they don't buy. And it literally was because I had the solution, but I didn't have the energy. So let's bring that energy, keep it going. Why not, right? Win the day, everybody out there. Like, subscribe, share, support. Let's go.
Love it.